Joining us now with a reality check on that agenda is Breitbart economist and finance editor John Carney. John, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about what economic impact is great Joe Biden building the economy from the bottom up and the middle out when you want to raise taxes on more Americans. What impact will that have, John? Is it going to grow the economy?
No, it's not going to help the economy at all. And in fact, he's done the opposite. If you look at what's happened to real wages for Americans, they are down every quarter for 8 quarters. And in fact, you know, if you want to talk about gender inequality, that's gotten worse as well. Women's average real wages per week are down more than men. So we're all losing money because of inflation, and women are losing their incomes even faster than men.
Yeah, he has to squint so he can't see how absolutely enraged people are at what he's done to the American people. And he's enriched the rich. That Inflation Reduction Act is welfare for rich corporations and the affluent to the tune of at least more than $1 trillion just for the first 10 years.
If you look
so he's done the exact opposite of what President Trump did.
If you look at what people on the lower income scales households' expenses are, they are things like gasoline. Groceries is a huge part of a household bill. That means when you have 10% inflation in what they call food at home in the CPI reports, that's hitting people who are on the lower end. So when he says he's building it from the bottom up and from the middle out, he's not doing that at all. In fact, it's very wealthy households that spend a much smaller fraction of their household income on food than middle-class households that are really getting hurt here. And that's a big problem.
And older people on fixed incomes as well.
Absolutely.
It's horrible.
Can I make one more point
Sure.
before we move on? And one thing, so inflation, the rate might be easing, but prices don't fall. Prices go up with inflation when it was 9% last year, and they stay elevated. They don't fall unless we head into a deep, deep recession, depression, which is possible with this clown.
You might get that too.
But they stay here.
All right, let's move on, because also happening today, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy traded jabs with President Biden over the debt ceiling. Listen to this.
The threat of defaulting on America's debt for the first time in 230 years. We've never, ever defaulted on the debt. And it will destroy this economy.
President Biden has a choice. Come to the table and stop playing partisan political games.
So listen, this is a big deal because usually the Congress and the president will sit down and negotiate a resolution, and usually you'll cut spending. Kevin McCarthy only wants to go back to 2022 levels, which was still really elevated. He's going to raise the debt limit, $1.5 trillion, but he wants to claw back some of the unspent COVID money to pay for it. What say you?
Right, and cap the amount of increases going forward, which is not cut anything, really. We'd actually keep growing, but just not at a very rapid pace. Remember, we grew spending tremendously during the pandemic. We should now that we're down to 3.5% unemployment, the lowest in 40 years. We should not be spending anywhere near as much as we are. That's one of the things that's fueling this inflation. The fact that the Biden administration is willing to engage in this kind of crazy brinkmanship and fear-mongering, saying we're in danger of defaulting on debt. We never have to default on debt, by the way. Even if they never raise the debt ceiling again, we could pay every treasury we'd have to not pay other things. Other bills would come due. But every treasury bond that the U.S. government has ever issued could be paid with just the income that we get from taxes without borrowing at all. So this is fear-mongering. He's lying when he says that they're risking default.
Oh, how dare you? I'm going to clutch my pearls and fan my face. You say that the commander-in-chief lies. How dare you, John Carney? Moving on. Speaking of screwing over people who are responsible, the Biden administration is going to punish people who are responsible who have good credit. So people who pay their bills on time will have to pay more. There's a new rule that's going to force home buyers with high credit scores to pay higher mortgage rates or higher fees to subsidize people with riskier credit ratings. So people with, well, explain this, John Carney. Why would the Biden administration do this?
So their goal is to try to make homes more affordable for people who have worse credit. It's not going to work because what it's going to do is raise the cost for people with good credit, raise the cost for people who have saved enough to make a down payment. Though if you can make a 20% down payment, your mortgage will actually be higher than if you make a 15%. You know what a rational person is going to do? They're going to make a lower down payment, which makes the entire system riskier. The mortgage people, the mortgage lenders are freaking out. Even people who I know who were very close to the Obama administration have criticized this, said, this doesn't make any sense. It appears they don't understand anything about the way the mortgage market works. Doing this at a time when the mortgages are already up at 7%, increasing the cost for people trying to buy a home, it is really unprecedented, and frankly, I don't even want to say, I said they were a liar before. Now I think this is insane.
I remember the good old days when we used to incentivize good behavior, not punish good behavior. Good credit scores and putting more money down. Your rate should have come down. Joe Biden wants to increase it. John Carney, as always, thanks for joining us.